Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Off-Road Hub. My name is Ken. Thank you for watching. Today is the last day that my 2010 Toyota FJ Cruiser will be on 35-inch tires. Now, as I mentioned in my previous video, to do a solid axle swap, everything's got to come off the bottom of the FJ. So I'm going to start at the lowest point, and there's nothing lower on the FJ than these skid plates. So those have got to come off first. So Bug Built likes to use these 5mm Allen head bolts on a couple different places on their skid plates. And this one and the other one over on the other side, those are both seized into place. I think maybe just because the skid plates deformed so much there. But they're not going to come out with the 5mm Allen socket. So I'm going to have to drill them out. That's a lot of dirt. All right, guys, I got those skid plates off finally. They had a lot of mud on them, adding quite a bit of extra weight. When I took off all the skid plates and everything, the vehicle came up about an inch. So these things are pretty heavy. These are made of 3/16" steel. They're Bug Built skid plates. I've really abused them pretty extensively. Here's where I had to drill out those bolts, because I mean the whole thing is pretty deformed, even though it has this reinforcement right here, right where those holes are. I mean, I still managed to deform that quite a bit. Here's the gas tank skid, which is actually, the gas tank skid is only 1/8 inch, because I didn't want to hang anything heavier than that from the 4 straps on the gas tank. Didn't seem like a great idea, so I stuck with 8 inch on the gas tank, but this is 3/16. Definitely deformed. I think, just check out the waviness of this one on the front. And that's not supposed to be bent over like that. I backed up and hit a rock and it bent that down when I was in Texas. Anyways, these Bug Built skid plates have held up really well considering what I've put them through, which is a lot. They they could be reused as skid plates, but they're getting pretty beat up. I won't be able to use them as they are with the new build, but I might try to cut them up and use the metal that's in them for other things. It's still good steel. So anyways, skid plates out of here. Okay guys, this is pretty fun because this is essentially my new ride height. So what's interesting is to observe some imbalances in the vehicle. For instance, my front wheels are off the ground and my rear wheels are very much still on the ground. Very much still on the ground. So I mean, that is one issue with the independent front suspension, is that it's just an inherently imbalanced system. So the new ride height is from the frame to the ground, 23 inches. Let me do that better. Let's see here. So yeah, 23 inches. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but from the ground to the frame is that 23 inches, and then check the level of it, and it's extremely close with just a slight rake to the front, which I'll probably try to dial that in a little bit better. I don't know if you can see that bubble, probably not. Super, super close to level, but I don't really want any rake, but I'm not done making a final adjustment to the jack stands and all that, but that's essentially where we're going to be at, 23 inches. So now I know I said, yeah, oops, IFS is inherently an imbalanced system. I understand that I don't have the most advanced independent front suspension setup, and I know that you can spend a ton of money and do a lot better in terms of travel, but I'm going to spend a ton of money and just go a different direction. So more on this not being a super advanced setup. This is at obviously full droop, the wheels off the ground, and you can see I've got some contact between the upper control arm here and the coil, and my CV axle angle is pretty extreme, and my tie rod here also, and there's even a little bit of bind in that CV, so that probably wasn't helping them survive. So anyways, yeah, not an ideal setup, but to do better involves spending a ton more money on a system that just isn't in the end going to give me what I'm looking for. Meanwhile, in the back, this solid axle is not sweating it at all. I'm going to actually have to jack up the rear axle to get the tires off, and then we'll see how far down the rear axle droops without the tires on. All right, now let's see how close this rear axle comes to actually hitting the ground. Oh, no, didn't hit the ground. Well, that's good. That would have been inconvenient. All right, now that the wheels and tires are off, let's get underneath this thing and really start tearing it apart.
I start to wonder now if this road is right. You start to spread your doubt and confuse my mind.
All right, so with those drive shafts out, the rear one out and the front one's still in there, but loose. I'm working on getting that transfer case out of there. If we go under here, take a look. Let's see. We just gotta take out this exhaust cross pipe and this cross member. And there's an O2 sensor up here to disconnect. And that portion of the exhaust comes out with this portion right here. And then hopefully it'll just be as simple as unbolting that transfer case and carefully lowering it down.
There's a heavy load upon my back, no way to throw it off. For a second I believe it's gone. I'm just a fool out of luck. Standing on the open road, always with a heavy load. Don't let me carry it alone. I think my head is full of stone. There's not a whole lot I can do when all my visions have come true. There are times when everything feels great. I'm on top of the world. But eventually my spirit breaks. Can't get the final word. Standing on the open road, holding up my heavy load. Don't let me carry it alone. I feel like my head is full of stone.
All right. Well, that was pretty exciting. Good thing I've got a nice big soft belly for that transfer case to land on. Oh, here's the drive shaft. Front drive shaft. There we go, the pile's getting bigger. So getting the transfer case out is kind of a bear. There are, in fact, 8 bolts that go around, and there's one hiding up here at the top. Just keep that in mind in case you're doing the job. Nice little demonstration I can do of the gears here. It's pretty fun. So, let's see. There's 2 high. See the input and output spinning straight through. Then we got 4 high. And then, let's see, neutral, nothing happens. And then 4 low. See how much slower they turn compared to the input. It's pretty fun. It's pretty cool. See the difference in 4 high and 4 low? Anyways, that's fun. So if you're not familiar with the FJ Cruiser, it's a 4-link with a panhard. So you've got a lower link coming down right there, and then an upper link, and then another upper link, and then your other lower link over here, and then across the back is the panhard, and then you got your coils and your shocks. So that is the deal on an FJ Cruiser. All right, here's the rear locking solenoid connector and speed sensor connectors. You know what I dislike the most about working on vehicles? Actually, it's electrical connectors, especially ones that are all clogged up with dirt, because they don't work like they're supposed to. and they can be a real pain in the butt. But I'll get them off eventually, I'm sure. There's one. There we go. 2. Oh, I almost forgot to take these brake lines off. These are extended brake lines from Metal Tech. Got a 10 millimeter fitting up here. Oh. There we go. Knocked you right off of there. That bolt got a little chewed up. So I get a lot of questions about the Davidson's long travel or extended travel rear suspension. Here's what the coils look like. They come in this red color and the green color I think Davidson likes to use. You can see it's progressive spring, so it's light up here at the top and then heavier down here, so that this is mostly so the coil doesn't fall out when you're at full extension. And they've never fallen out. They've been great. No problems with this suspension setup in the rear at all. And none of the components have had any malfunctions or had any problems whatsoever. Here's what the shocks look like. You can see that they are extremely long, much longer than stock, that's for sure. And these ones still have a lot of life left in them. So only about 6,000 miles on these. 6,000 pretty rough miles, but 6,000 miles. Nonetheless, no leaking, none of that. Great performing suspension for sure. I've also had a lot of questions about whether or not these are for sale. They were for sale and they're sold. The other major part of my rear suspension setup were the ResFab links, and they have also performed flawlessly. One problem with them is a manufacturing defect though, and that was the powder coating that started falling off within a month after installing them. So, and there wasn't really any customer service to resolve that, so take that as you will. But as links structurally, they perform flawlessly. They are super strong, so I do recommend them, but you might want to get them raw or bare so that you can get them powder coated yourself. All right, with that little bit of exhaust, I think I finally got everything out of the back that I need to. Toyota uses pretty high quality mufflers. This is the original, and it took some hits, as you can see, but it never leaked. It never made any noise. It was always quiet as a mouse. And then my tailpipe, you can see, is pretty flat. but didn't seem to be affecting performance either. Anyways, that's the last little bit out of the back. And now we're gonna move on and get everything off the front here finally. So if you ever get into removing your steering rack, I recommend that you run your seat belt through your steering wheel and buckle it down there, just so your steering wheel can't turn after you remove the steering shaft. And that's because there's a clock spring here in the air for the airbag, so your airbag wiring can turn, but it can only turn so far, so you don't want the steering wheel spinning around after you remove that steering shaft. So just run that seat belt through there and you'll be all good. Since I'm going full hydro steering, that doesn't really apply to me, but I don't want to break it anyway. Alright, I got the driver's side cleared out. No more independent front suspension over here. Even the lower control arm sleeves and bolts came out without any real struggle, so that's really good. Now for the passenger side. Alright, this side is done, just like that. Everything went pretty well. This bolt in the lower control arm was a little bit seized up, but just took a little convincing with the hammer. This CV axle did not come out of the front differential. It refuses. So after I get the front differential out, I will deal with that. But so anyways, the only two things left up front now are that front differential and the steering rack. So we'll get those out of there and then we'll be done tearing apart. Well, I'll be done taking off all the bolt-on parts on the FJ. All right, I got the front differential on the bench here, and the CV axle that was giving me a heck of a time came right out with a couple hits of my hammer here, and the ring is still totally intact and everything, so I don't know what was holding that in, but it was a real pain. But it's a lot easier to deal with up here on the bench. Man, these two lines going into the steering rack, whew, man, those things are a pain. There's a screw in and just a hose, but those are some of the hardest things to access I've ever seen. So these right here are the bolts that hold in the steering rack. There's nuts on top, and normally Toyota assembles this so that the head of the bolt is up on top, and so you have to move parts to get the bolt out of up there. But I replaced this rack last year sometime, and I made sure that the bolts went in up rather than down. So if you do a steering rack on an FJ Cruiser, and I think on 4Runners, make sure you correct Toyota's mistake and make sure the bolts go up. It'll be self-explanatory if you do it. Okay guys, well I think I'm finally done with this stage of the build slash teardown. So quite a pile of parts I've gathered here. Drive shaft, suspension, axle, steering rack, exhaust, lots of stuff. Looks pretty barren underneath the FJ now. Here's the front differential. Looking pretty barren back here, which is good. Actually, I welcome this appearance because it's gonna make it that much easier to put the solid axles and everything underneath, which is the whole goal. So I'm not done taking the FJ apart yet because I still have to cut off all the bracketry and all that kind of stuff off of the frame and clean off the frame because I'm gonna put on new link mounts and all kinds of stuff on the frame. So anyways, a lot of work in this one. I wasn't sure I'd squeeze it all into one video, but here it is. If you enjoyed it, give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already, so I can share new content with you on Mondays and Thursdays, and we'll see you next time.